their selfishness and their zeal for that sense of security is ultimately what we're having a discussion over right now. And it goes beyond red flag laws. It goes beyond bump stocks. It goes beyond how many rounds are within a firearm. It goes to the fundamental principle of whether or not we as human beings have the ability to assert ourselves in the protection of those God-given rights. That although we are all entered into a social contract of some sort in which the government is the executor of justice for wrongs committed against us, that whenever we face immediate danger of these rights being forcefully taken away from us by an aggressor, whether or not we possess the ability to act as the executor of justice in this case and defend ourselves. Hello everyone, my name is JD
And this is Logan.
and welcome to the WireTap. And this week has been a bit of a crazy week. We've had a lot of impeachment stuff going on, and I'm sure that you have had your fill of it if you're like us. I was sick of hearing about it months ago, and it's just starting. All of the any palpable steps being made in impeachment are just now taking place.
I've abstained from all of it pretty much, besides the headlines, and I'm even sick of it. Just reading the headlines.
Yeah, just going through and seeing the opinion pieces and the news pieces that are put up every day. It gets tiresome, and I'm sure that you've had your fill of it from other media figures that you follow on social media or watch or listen to, and I'm sure that they could explain it and provide insight much more insightful and better than I ever could. But I want to hit something today that was kind of glossed over by the media at the beginning of the week because of impeachment. And any other time, this would have been the forefront of the media for 2 weeks before they finally moved on. And it was gone in about 2 days this week.
Yeah.
And that was the shooting at a California school. You had a 16-year-old gunman who shot himself after he killed 2 classmates and wounded 3 other students. And it was breaking last night, at least according to CNN, that he had died, according to his injuries, I guess.
Yeah.
But it says that he died Friday afternoon, according to the LA Sheriff's Department, and of course it was the day before on Thursday that he went into the school and did this. And it wasn't too long after this, and in fact I have this as well from CNN, and they put this piece up on Friday, so the day after this event, and it says, in 46 weeks this year, there have been 44 school shootings. And this is a common thing that they do a lot. I've seen this multiple times in the past 2 or 3 years from many different sources with this same kind of angle, the same kind of tactic. In this instance, it's how many weeks are in the year and correlating that to school shootings. It wasn't too long ago whenever there was the same kind of thing to where it was like we're at day 300 this year and there have been 350 mass shootings, just mass shootings in general. And the way that they arrive at these numbers is very misleading. And intentionally so, because they know that that's what sells, that's what gets clicks, that's what gets attention, is that outrageous statistic. But that statistic simply is not true. at least in any conventional means of the word. Now, whenever we think of school shootings, we think of shootings in which a gunman has entered a school, whether it be a student or whether it be an outsider, but they've entered the school and they shoot and kill multiple people, whether they be faculty, staff, or students.
Mm-hmm.
That is our definition of a school shooting in its broadest sense of the word. If we're going to look at mass shooting, typically the FBI looks at mass shootings. Their definition of mass shootings is, I believe, four or more people at one time. I believe it's killed. I mean, that's a mass killing. So if you wanted to do just mass shooting, 4 or more people shot at one time.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the outcome of that is, whether it be just injury or death, fatality. Mm-hmm. This is what CNN's definition, and credit to them, they put it at the top of this story, their methodology. Most of the time you have to dig a little deeper for this. And props to them. They at least put this out front so that way you didn't have to waste your time reading the rest of the story, which lists the examples of all of this happening. First, the shooting must involve at least one person being shot, not including the shooter. So a single person being shot. That, I mean, right off the bat, that is nowhere close
to a mass
to
shooting.
What we think of whenever we think of school shootings. One person being shot. The shooting must occur on school property, which includes but is not limited to buildings, athletic fields, parking lots, stadiums, and buses. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. It's on school property.
Wait,
that makes sense.
My question for that is, so if there's a shooting like on the streets and maybe a bullet hits a bus, it's in downtown New York City and a stray bullet hits a bus, is that a school shooting then?
I imagine some might do that, but based off of this, because yes, I mean, there is that kind of manipulation of those kind of figures to where incidents like that may occur in or around school campuses.
Yeah. And
then those get thrown in to like gun violence statistics that places like the Washington Post will tout. At the end of the year or in the middle of the year or just after a mass shooting of some sort. According to this definition, there has to be at least one person shot, has to occur on school property. This is their third bullet. We included accidental discharge of a firearm as long as the first two parameters are met, except in instances where the sole shooter is law enforcement or a security officer. Okay. The gun accidentally goes off, and it shoots at least one person. But that is not a school shooting by any definition of the word.
If Big Joe shoots himself in the leg with his conceal and carry in the parking lot.
And I mean, let's be fair here. Their first point was one person being shot, not including the shooter. So if a person shoots themselves, that doesn't count here. But whenever we think of mass shooting, it is a person intentionally, not accidentally. They are very intentional on shooting other people with the intention of killing them. Accidental discharge of a weapon on school property and it accidentally shooting somebody else is nowhere near what we think of whenever we hear the word school shooting. And the reason why I'm driving that point home so much is to show you how these things are so easily manipulated. Because we have a word, school shooting, and it has a connotation that you think of whenever you hear it. And they are purposely using that word for attention. this article to get clicks, to get reads, to get attention, but also for the dopes on social media, for the dopes on Twitter who don't read it, share it, and use this as fodder to try to prove their points.
Yeah.
For gun control. And this is the way that they try to influence the gun control debate, with articles with outrageous statistics like this. But whenever you look at the methodology, whenever you look at how they arrive at this number, you see that it is nowhere near what we think of whenever we hear the word school shooting. An accidental discharge of a firearm is not at all what we think of whenever we think of school shooting. Whenever we think of school shooting, we think of something like Columbine. We think of something like Sandy Hook. We think of, all of these things, Parkland, whatever it may be. That is our definition of school shooting.
In the article,
that is what that is. And you can have the argument as to what point it then becomes a school shooting. But this so far really is not. Because it's one person being shot, not necessarily killed, just shot. It includes accidental discharge. And might I add that they do not exclude gang-related activity on school property. Which in inner cities, and I can testify to this up in St. Louis, they have this a lot. Because it's just, easy, a prime location that people can gather on certain areas, parking lots or playgrounds of school campuses up in St. Louis. And I imagine that this is the case across inner cities across America, that gangs will gather.
Yeah.
And things like this will occur. That goes into this statistic theoretically. It should. If they abide by these rules that they've set out, that will also go into this statistic and also inflate it.
It can be 12 o'clock at night, and there can be a gang-related incident on the playground.
It'll be 2 a.m. There'll be a gang there. There'll be some sort of violence. There'll be a drug deal of some sort. Violence will break out, and that theoretically counts in this statistic. Again, not the conventional definition of a mass shooting. And the fourth bullet point, rather, is the one that just takes the cake. We included injuries sustained from BB guns, since the Consumer Product Safety Commission has identified them as potentially lethal.
If you
BB guns. It's amazing, given how vague and how broad these parameters set forth for arriving at this number are.
That they didn't get a higher number.
Exactly. That there's only 44 of these incidents across a nation of over 300 million people in 46 weeks. That there have only been 44 incidents. And not to take away from any legitimate instances of shooting crime or anything like that. But this is intentionally misleading and and playing on people's fears. And using them for their own benefit. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. It's sloppy journalism. It's wrong. It's unethical, I argue. Because we all know that this is not what we think of as a school shooting. The things that we described before. One person being shot, not necessarily killed, just shot. Just one person. Including the accidental discharge of firearms, including gang-related activity, and including BB guns.
And what when you think of somebody got shot at school, and then you read the next paragraph with a zinc BB that did not leave a whelp on them.
Yeah. And this is the definition of school shooting that CNN comes to. This is how they arrive at the number of 44 school shootings this year in 46 weeks. It's ridiculous. This has gotten to a point to where it's just sad to me. Like, I know that we look at this stuff, and I know whenever I looked at this at first, I was like, are you kidding me? Like I was kind of angry about that. But as it goes along, it just gets so disappointing. And really honestly makes me sad to sit and think about this, because this is so openly taken as truth. And there's only a small percentage of people who actually thoughtfully consider what they're being told and what they're being fed. There's a small percentage who actually think it through and realize that it's a crock of crap.
Well, for some people, they accept it because that's what they want to hear. They want to have that, to retweet, to rub it in somebody's face that we should have gun control. There's been 44 shootings in 46 weeks.
And immediately after this, and I know Kamala Harris, she put up a video. I can't even remember what day it was exactly, but it was a video of her talking to somebody, I assume there, who might have been a student in this high school. And the student, is in tears and everything like that. I don't want to die, gun violence, all this kind of stuff. Kamala Harris puts that up as a way to try to boost her abysmal polling numbers. Pete Buttigieg did a similar thing, not a video, but sends out the expected tweet. They all did. Yep. They all do that. And it's to be expected at this point. But it really is saddening to see such a turn in our media, such a turn in the people regarding this issue. And nobody bats an eye.
Nope.
Nobody thinks deeper about this and how they're being manipulated and used. Because they are. They are being played like such a fiddle. And it's just disheartening. And that's why I kind of have this tone in my voice, if you can't tell. It's just really disheartening that people are so gullible about this. And that people think, these people, honest to God, think that the NRA pulls the strings for the Republican Party, that they own the Republican Party in all of our policy. And I believe that we've said this before on this program, but that if you're going to blame the NRA for pulling the strings for the Republican Party, then you have to equally look at the log in the left's eye regarding Planned Parenthood. Because Planned Parenthood
far exceeds
the money that the Democrat Party receives from Planned Parenthood for campaign contributions exceeds that of the NRA for the Republican Party. It's not a close race. They do exceed it. There's no fudging of the numbers. It's a fact. And if you're going to complain, if you want to criticize these organizations' ability to donate that much money to the political parties, that's a different discussion. If you're going to criticize the NRA for doing that, however, you have to be equally critical of Planned Parenthood, because they are just as bad in the other direction. They are just as bad. And you people honestly think, these leftists, these progressives honestly think that the NRA is back there, they're the man behind the curtain pulling the strings for the Republican Party, directing our policy. That's what they honestly
Once
think.
again,
And
the
that
gullibility.
and
It's what they've been told.
Yeah. And they really think that if they ban these things, that life will be so much better. The murder rates will plummet. Everything will be as it should be. And that's just not true. It's a fanciful way to look at life. It's just not true. And the evidence bears out from countries worldwide that have done this same thing. The evidence bears out from countries who have banned firearms in this way.
Yeah. I'm sorry to say it, but there's been school shootings that have already happened. There are going to be school shootings that, God forbid, that they're going to happen in the future. More than likely. There's going to be more. How are they going to skew the facts, and what's going to be their story whenever they continue to happen, even after they ban guns?
Yes. Because need we remind you that this occurred in California?
In fact,
this occurred in California.
The majority of these type things, I believe, have happened in California.
Lately, yeah.
Definitely
for sure.
Lately, these last few years.
Just the last couple of months. Because you've had this now.
Had that festival.
You had that Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting. I mean, you've had
There's been
the San
Francisco.
Bernardino, that whole thing. I mean, there's been multiple of these in California. One of the darkest blue of dark blue states.
And you had the worst one ever in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
That's
another
pretty
Democrat
blue state.
Another Democrat stronghold. The issue here is that this is a problem of the heart. This is not a problem that legislation can solve. And I think that people are starting to wake up to that. This isn't something that can be fixed with a bill passed by the House and the Senate. This is something that starts within ourselves. This is something that starts within our own soul. And we're at a place where talking about those kind of things is very unpopular. It's looked down upon, it's frowned upon. And that's unfortunate because I think that's exactly what we need right now. A lot of our problems that we talk about every week, a lot of the issues that we talk about every week and we look at and we reflect, a majority of them have one common theme or one underlying element that's common, and that is selfishness. Much of our problems as a society right now are based off of selfishness and a culture of me, myself, and I. Those have become our gods. Those have become our idols. Instead of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it's become me, myself, and I. And it's what's ruining us, whether we want to admit it or not. I think it's becoming increasingly obvious that we have some serious problems. And we look at the issues that candidates on the left are proposing to fix and their solutions to these problems. And we look at what their supporters want. They look at the government as a means to supply what they want and they desire. You remember in basic civics class whenever you learned the difference between wants and needs? Everything has slipped into that need category. Your phone, your everything, your Netflix package, your computer, everything has slipped into that need category. And that selfishness is what these politicians are all proposing to provide for. And it's that selfishness that spills over into our societal problems of making yourself more important than others, making your needs, elevating them so that they begin to trample on the natural, God-given rights of life, liberty, and property of other people. So people look to our government, they look to our leaders, and they want that sense of security so badly that they're willing to sacrifice the right inherent in being able to defend your God-given rights. Their selfishness and their zeal for that sense of security is ultimately what we're having a discussion over right now, and it goes beyond red flag laws. It goes beyond bump stocks. It goes beyond how many rounds are within a firearm. It goes to the fundamental principle of whether or not we as human beings have the ability to assert ourselves in the protection of those God-given rights. That although we are all entered into a social contract of some sort in which the government is the executor of justice for wrongs committed against us, that whenever we face immediate danger of these rights being forcefully taken away from us by an aggressor, whether or not we possess the ability to act as the executor of justice in this case and defend ourselves. That's the fundamental issue here. But we can't get beyond Twitter or Facebook or social media in general. We can't get beyond cable news. We can't get beyond 24-hour headlines, notifications pushed to us on our phones from news agencies. We can't get beyond that. We can't get beyond the obsession to win an argument in and of itself, a demonstration of selfishness and pride. To win that argument. And we get articles like this from CNN to where there's been 44 school shootings in 46 weeks. Well, thank you for joining us on this edition of the WireTap, and make sure you go to all of our social media, on Twitter and SoundCloud. Check us out. Make sure you hit the like button, you hit subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Make sure you visit both of our platforms, SoundCloud and YouTube, for the audio and the visual elements of our broadcast. And for Logan, I am JD saying goodbye, God bless, and we will see you next time.